So imagine you're paying like $35 to watch the season finale of your absolute favorite television show.
Right.
You've been waiting all year for this.
Oh, yeah. The hype is at an all-time high.
Exactly. The main characters are finally facing off. The tension is just unbearable. The music swells. They charge at each other. And then suddenly,
Let me guess.
the screen just cuts to a 30-second, completely unskippable DoorDash commercial.
Oh, man. It completely breaks the immersion. I mean, you go from the edge of your seat to just, staring at your phone, totally deflated.
Right. And that, in a nutshell, is exactly what broke the internet this past Saturday night.
It really did.
So, welcome to this deep dive into the chaotic, absolute, whiplash-inducing weekend of WrestleMania 42 and, of course, the Monday Night Raw that followed.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. If you are joining us today, we are taking a massive stack of source material. We're talking live Reddit discussion threads, post-event reactions, comprehensive community breakdowns. We're using all of this to unpack one of the most polarizing weekends in recent sports entertainment history.
Which is just a fascinating space to be in, honestly, because we are looking at a fan base that was pushed to the absolute brink of alienation, only to be, pulled back into a state of total euphoria roughly 24 hours later.
Yeah, it's literally the tale of two manias. So whether you are a hardcore fan who can recite the entire lineage of the Intercontinental Championship or, a completely casual viewer who just tuned in to see the spectacle of Las Vegas, we are your shortcut today.
Exactly. We're doing the heavy lifting.
We're going to decode the dense history, highlight those unforgettable moments, and basically translate exactly what the online fan base is screaming about right now. And believe me, they are screaming.
Oh, they are very loud right now. The contrast between the two nights was, well, it was violent. It's incredibly rare to see a global audience experience such a severe emotional pendulum swing within a single weekend.
Yeah, it's jarring.
You have to understand, WrestleMania isn't just a show, right? It's the culmination of an entire year of narrative investment.
Which brings us to the core mystery of our deep dive today. How does an event shift so violently from this ad-riddled, heavily criticized Night 1 on Saturday to a universally praised Night 2 on Sunday?
It's the million-dollar question.
And beyond that, how do those specific, super controversial outcomes completely rewrite the power dynamics on Monday Night Raw?
Well, to figure that out, we really have to look directly at the tension between commercialization and traditional ring psychology.
Right.
Let's start with the Saturday broadcast. If you comb through the live Reddit discussion threads from Night 1, the sentiment wasn't just disappointed. I mean, it was brutally negative. We had users calling it straight up one of the worst ever.
Yeah, I was reading those two. I saw fans drawing direct parallels to WrestleMania 9.
Oh, wow. WrestleMania 9. That is rough.
Which, for those who don't know, is historically considered the absolute bottom of the barrel for the company.
Yeah.
But here's the crazy part. One user on Reddit actually pointed out this crazy granular detail.
Okay, what was it?
So, Hulk Hogan famously had this unexplained black eye at WrestleMania 9, right?
Right, the infamous jet ski accident or whatever the excuse was.
Exactly. And Cody Rhodes came out with a very real black eye on Night 1 of WrestleMania 42. So fans were calling it the curse of the black eye, basically cementing the parallel of universally terrible manias.
That is amazing. It really goes to show how encyclopedic the fans' memories are. They miss nothing.
Nothing at all.
But the overarching complaint driving that negativity, it wasn't just about a visual parallel or a single bad match finish. It was about the fundamental feeling of the broadcast.
Yeah, the vibe was just off.
Completely off. Fans were repeatedly stating that it felt like a rushed, standard episode of weekly television, not the grand showcase of the immortals.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Because a massive part of that criticism was directed squarely at TKO's monetization strategies.
Right, the corporate side of things.
Yeah. So for the casual listener, TKO is the massive parent company that recently merged WWE and UFC under one giant corporate umbrella.
And what the really astute fans on Reddit are pointing out is the reality of corporate debt leverage.
Oh, this is the fascinating part.
It is, because when a massive merger of that scale occurs, it brings a tremendous amount of debt onto the books. That debt has to be serviced, right? And so the corporate mandate becomes crystal clear. You monetize every single available second of your biggest broadcast of the year.
Which leads us right back to that DoorDash analogy I opened with. Because reading through these sources, Night 1 felt exactly like playing a freemium mobile game.
Oh, that's exactly what it was.
You know the ones. Where you're trying to clear a level, but you're forced to watch a 30-second ad for some other weird puzzle game every 3 minutes just to keep playing.
Yeah, the pacing was dictated entirely by the advertising blocks, not the athletes in the ring.
But hold on, let me ask for some clarification here, because this is where the casual viewer might get lost.
Huh.
Why does corporate debt directly impact match duration and ring pacing?
That's a great question.
I mean, we know they need to show ads. That's just modern television. Everybody gets that. But why does that inherently mean the wrestling matches themselves have to feel so frantic and disconnected?
That is the crucial question, and it really comes down to the mechanics of what wrestling fans call ring psychology.
Okay, break that down for us.
Professional wrestling isn't just about throwing punches or doing flips, you know? It relies entirely on building emotional investment through pacing. A truly great match needs time to breathe.
Like any good story.
Exactly. It needs the initial feeling out process, the slow escalation of the conflict, the moments where the hero is in absolute despair, and then that slow, agonizing build to a triumphant comeback.
So it's essentially a 3-act play happening in real time in front of a live audience.
That is exactly what it is. But imagine trying to perform a 3-act play when a producer in the back is just screaming into the referee's earpiece that they have a hard, unmovable out in 2 minutes for a sponsor read.
Oh, man. That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. The wrestlers are forced to completely abandon the slow build. They have to rush directly to what the industry calls their high spots.
Wait, define high spots for someone who doesn't watch every week. What exactly is a high spot, and why does rushing to it ruin the match?
So a high spot is a major, visually spectacular maneuver. Think of someone like jumping off the top rope through a table, or a really complex acrobatic sequence that requires a lot of cooperation between the two performers.
The highlight reel stuff.
Right, the stuff that makes it to social media. When built up properly, a high spot is the emotional climax of a sequence. But when you are forced to rush, you skip the storytelling. You skip the struggle, the selling of the exhaustion, and you go straight to the stunts.
Ah, so it stops looking like a fight.
Exactly. It looks like a choreographed gymnastics routine rather than an actual physical contest, which completely severs the fans' emotional connection.
Wow. Okay, that perfectly explains the frustration I was reading in the Reddit threads regarding the women's division on night 1,
Yeah.
because fans were literally using stopwatches at home.
I saw those threads. It was damning.
It really was.
Yeah.
None of the women's matches on Saturday crossed the 10-minute mark.
Not a single one.
I mean, we had the Women's Tag Team Championship Fatal 4-Way. We had Liv Morgan versus Stephanie Vacher. They were all just incredibly short.
Way too short to tell a story.
Right. The casual viewer was given absolutely zero time to invest in the mechanics of those matches. The Fatal 4-Way was reduced to this hurried sequence where Paige and Brie Bella essentially just entered the ring, hit their signature moves, and won.
There was zero psychological buildup.
None. And what filled the time they took away from the women's division? A relentless barrage of advertisements.
Oh, don't even get me started on the ads. They even aired a mid-show documentary piece about Hulk Hogan right in the middle of the premium live event.
Documentary. During the live show, I mean, who does that?
The online community was livid. I saw one fan state they felt they had watched more ads than actual in-ring competition.
Honestly, they probably weren't far off.
Another user joked, rather bitterly, that they were paying a monthly subscription fee just to watch commercials, and they actually threatened to cancel the moment the final bell rang.
It's that freemium game feeling again.
Exactly. The friction between art and commerce was playing out live, and commerce was winning at the severe expense of the art.
But then, and here's the whiplash, the sun rises on Sunday, and we get night 2. And if night 1 was the freemium mobile game, night 2 was the premium $70 AAA video game release.
A completely different beast.
You paid your money, and you were instantly immersed in a complete, uninterrupted narrative experience.
The contrast is truly staggering. Night 2 was praised across the boards as being crafted by, as the fans called them, actual wrestling people.
People who actually care about the product.
Right. The pacing actually breathed.
There was even a fan on Reddit who pointed out the absolute hilarity of WWE running ads on Sunday's Night 2 broadcast, trying to convince people to go back and watch Saturday's Night 1.
That is so funny.
It just highlights the massive disparity in quality. They had to practically beg people to watch the previous night.
You can see the difference clearest when you look at the Intercontinental Championship ladder match won by Penta on Night 2.
Oh man, the fans were calling that an absolute masterpiece.
Because it was. It stole the show through sheer technical brilliance and incredibly high stakes. But more importantly, the wrestlers were actually given the canvas and the time to paint that masterpiece.
Right, no screaming producers in their ears.
Exactly. They didn't have to rush their spots. The fans on Reddit were universally praising it, highlighting that when the corporate mandate steps back and actually lets the in-ring psychology take over, the product is exceptional.
It's the difference between being told a story and having a story quickly summarized for you while someone tries to sell you insurance.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But, we do have to acknowledge something here. As much as Night 1's pacing suffered and frustrated people, the storylines it culminated and the ones Night 2 resolved left us with a profoundly altered landscape.
The chessboard was completely flipped over by the time Monday Night Raw went off the air.
Absolutely.
We are looking at a main event scene featuring Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and Gunther. And the results of this weekend completely reshuffled the deck for all of them.
Okay, let's break down this convoluted history for the listener, especially if you're just catching up and feeling completely overwhelmed by all these names.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts.
Let's start with Cody Rhodes. On Night 1, Cody retained his undisputed WWE Championship over Randy Orton.
Which was a deeply personal match, given their history as mentor and protege years ago.
Right, lots of history there. And by the way, this match had a stipulation that led to Pat McAfee's exit from pro wrestling, which a lot of Reddit users were surprisingly thrilled about.
Surprisingly, I don't know about that.
Well, I was reading threads where people were literally throwing virtual parades celebrating that outcome.
The sentiment towards McAfee online has always been quite polarizing, to say the least. While he brings a massive mainstream audience, which the company loves, many hardcore fans found his commentary style grating and just incredibly distracting from the in-ring product.
This is very loud.
Very. So his exit was viewed by that specific vocal demographic as a massive net positive.
But the bigger narrative shift, the one that really set the internet on fire, happened around the World Heavyweight Championship.
This is where we get into the really complex, emotionally heavy storytelling.
Let's lay out the context for everyone. You have CM Punk. Punk is 48 years old. He'd previously stepped in to win the title when Seth Rollins was legitimately injured.
Right, he was a transitional figure in a way.
Punk was a champion who, in his own words, wasn't even supposed to be in that spot at this stage in his career. But then on Night 2, he loses the belt cleanly to Roman Reigns.
Cleanly being the operative word there. And Roman Reigns had been completely off television for a significant stretch. His return to the pinnacle of the company brings back the multi-year Bloodline saga.
Okay, I have to stop you there, because the Bloodline saga is so massive, it almost needs its own dedicated encyclopedia series.
It really does.
For the casual listener, the Bloodline is basically the wrestling equivalent of The Sopranos. It's a multi-year storyline revolving around Roman Reigns as the tribal chief of his legendary Samoan wrestling family.
The Anoa'i family.
Right. And he's manipulating his cousins, demanding absolute loyalty, and just holding on to the top championship for literally years.
It's a perfect comparison. It is arguably the most successful, financially lucrative, long-term narrative WWE has executed in decades.
But putting the belt back on Roman, man, this is where we see a massive, almost aggressive split in the online community's reaction.
Oh yeah, it is a civil war online right now.
On one side of Reddit, you have fans who are absolutely thrilled. They really missed Roman's cinematic presence. They view his deliberate, slow-paced storytelling as an absolute masterclass in character work.
And they bring up some good business points, too.
Yeah. They noted a very interesting business detail. Roman's new contract likely demands weekly television appearances, meaning the top champion will actually be present to anchor the show.
Which is huge, unlike his previous run where he was rarely on TV.
Exactly. They argued that WWE simply makes more money and feels way more important when Roman is the top draw.
But the counter-reaction is just as loud.
Oh, it is deafening. The phrase bloodline fatigue is being thrown around heavily. Fans are calling Roman a Nepo baby part-timer.
Ouch!
Yeah, they are groaning, posting things like, Christ, they're just doing the bloodline again. They're calling it Bloodline Part 85.
And layered underneath that intense frustration with Roman is a profound sense of heartbreak for CM Punk.
Yes, that was so palpable in the comments. Fans are genuinely lamenting that Punk didn't get a final significant victory lap before his eventual retirement. They feel like he was just used as a transitional champion just to keep the seat warm for Roman.
The emotional weight of Punk's loss was amplified immensely on the Monday Night Raw following WrestleMania. The promo he delivered was just was incredibly raw.
It really was.
He didn't just talk about losing a wrestling match,
Yeah.
He blurred the lines of reality in a way only CM Punk really can.
He talked about real, profound personal losses. He stood in the ring and talked to the audience about his MMA trainer passing away while he was over in Japan 6 months ago. And then he brought up the death of his dog, Larry, back in November.
For those who follow Punk closely, Larry wasn't just a pet. He was a massive part of Punk's public persona and a source of immense emotional comfort for him.
Punk talked about how the fans carried him through those very real off-screen tragedies and how they were now carrying him through the fictional loss to Roman.
It was incredibly moving.
It blurred the lines completely between the character of CM Punk and the actual human being behind the microphone.
Yeah.
It resonated deeply with the audience.
And that vulnerability led directly into a fascinating, tense confrontation with Cody Rhodes later in the segment.
This was incredible television. Cody comes out, sporting that nasty real black eye from Saturday, barely able to walk, and he doesn't do his usual grand entrance with the pyro.
And for the listener, pyro is the massive fireworks display that usually accompanies big stars.
Right, thanks. Cody skips all that pageantry.
Mm.
He tells Punk that Cody, actually feels like the loser of the weekend, despite retaining his title.
Because Cody had to brutally beat down a genuine friend and a mentor in Randy Orton to keep it.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Punk points out that he got to fight Roman Reigns, someone he genuinely hates, so swinging at him was easy.
A great contrast.
But then, Punk drops this amazing line about the burden of being the top guy. He says, "Heavy is the head that weighs the crown." Punk tells Cody that he is free as a bird now, while Cody has to carry the weight of the entire company on his broken back.
It was a brilliantly respectful yet underlyingly tense interaction. It clearly sets the stage for a future showdown, potentially for a major summer event like SummerSlam.
Oh, for sure.
It established that these two respect each other deeply, but they are absolutely on a collision course.
But while Punk is stepping back and talking about being free as a bird, Roman Reigns is aggressively pulling his family back into his orbit.
Which brings us back to the bloodline.
On that same episode of Raw, Roman reunites with his cousins, the Usos.
This is where the narrative takes its next major turn.
Roman gives this incredibly manipulative promo about missing their trust and respect. He talks about wanting to run the business together like they did for 4 straight years, just dominating everyone.
Classic abuser tactics and storyline.
Totally. He holds up his hand, asking them to stand with him as his blood. He declares himself the OTC, the original tribal chief. The crowd in Vegas is just eating it up, acknowledging him. It looks like this heartwarming, albeit villainous, family reunion for about 2 seconds.
Because then the music hits and Jacob Fatu appears.
And Fatu completely shatters the dynamic.
He does. And this is crucial for the listeners who might be feeling that bloodline fatigue we talked about. Fatu tells Roman he doesn't just want the title, he needs it.
The desperation was intense.
He brings an element of harsh economic reality to the storyline. He talks about needing the private jets, the Rolexes, the vehicles, specifically to put his kids in better schools and elevate his immediate family out of their current circumstances.
He looks Roman dead in the eye and says he's doing it even if he has to go through his own family, promising that at their next event, he is going all gas, no brakes.
It was chilling.
Okay, let me pause here and push back on this booking decision for a second. If fans are on Reddit actively groaning about Bloodline Part 85 and complaining that we are just recycling the exact same family drama, is this a misstep by the writers?
Well,
I mean, is adding another cousin really the answer? Or is Jacob Fatu, with this unhinged all-gas, no-brakes mentality, the exact chaotic ingredient needed to keep this story fresh for a casual audience who might be starting to tune out?
it is absolutely a calculated risk by the company. As we said, the danger with the bloodline is repetition. We've seen Roman fight his cousins before. We've seen the struggle for who gets to be the head of the table.
Right. Jimmy and Jey Uso have both challenged him.
Exactly. However, introducing a character like Jacob Fatu, whose motivations are entirely grounded in financial desperation rather than just ego or demanding acknowledgement, it adds a completely new psychological layer.
So it's not about pride for Fatu. It's literally about a paycheck.
Precisely. Well, let me rephrase that. It's about survival. Fatu isn't asking for permission to sit at the table, you know? He's coming to take the food right off it.
Wow.
It forces Roman into a defensive position we haven't seen from him in years. Roman usually dictates the pace. He makes people come to him. Fatu is relentless.
He's a wild card.
Roman has to defend his throne, not from an outsider, but from A hungry relative who views the championship purely as an economic necessity for his children's future. It makes Fatu incredibly dangerous and honestly somewhat sympathetic, even if his methods are totally brutal.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Yeah.
It shifts the entire genre of the story from a mafia drama to a desperate fight for limited resources.
And speaking of veterans clinging desperately to the top of the mountain, while Roman is fighting to keep his spot, we saw another veteran do the exact opposite on night 2.
Oh, man. We are transitioning from a veteran clinging to the mountain to a veteran who essentially allowed himself to be thrown entirely off the cliff just to create a brand new monster.
We are, of course, talking about the match between Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi.
Let's just lay out the raw facts for the listener before we dive into the psychology of this, because it's nuts. This match happened on night 2. It lasted exactly 4 minutes and 45 seconds.
Unbelievable.
Oba Femi pinned Brock Lesnar cleanly
Yeah.
in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a quick win where he caught him off guard. It was an absolute one-sided destruction.
In wrestling terminology, what we witnessed is called a squash match.
Okay, define a squash match for the uninitiated, because the context is everything here.
A squash match is a heavily one-sided bout designed to make one wrestler look incredibly dominant, usually by having them quickly and decisively defeat a much weaker opponent who gets zero offense in.
Like a bug on a windshield.
Exactly. It's a tool used to build up new monsters.
Hmm.
But here is the critical context for this specific event. You do not squash Brock Lesnar.
Never. Brock Lesnar is the final boss of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, he ended The Undertaker's legendary undefeated WrestleMania streak.
He's a former UFC heavyweight champion.
Right. He is arguably the most legitimate, terrifying combat athlete in the company's entire history. He has spent 20 years being the monster that squashes other people.
Which is exactly why this match is so profoundly significant. Brock Lesnar is notoriously protective of his aura and his character. He doesn't lose often, and he certainly doesn't lose quickly.
He usually dictates the terms.
Absolutely. So for a man with that level of leverage and legacy to choose to go out to the ring at WrestleMania and sell his heart out, meaning to act as though he is being physically devastated for a newcomer like Oba Femi in under 5 minutes, that is the ultimate passing of the torch.
It really is.
It is an incredibly rare and generous act in a business that is largely built on protecting your own ego and your own brand.
The visual of it was absolutely stunning. I was reading comments from fans on Reddit who were pointing out that despite Brock's massive, unbelievable physique, I mean, one fan literally noted he has 2 sets of pecs, traps, and back muscles.
He's a freak of nature.
Yeah, but Oba Femi made him look lean.
He made Brock Lesnar look small. Just let that sink in for a second.
It's hard to even picture. And then the post-match moment. The camera catches Brock sitting in the corner of the ring after the bell, and he actually sheds a tear.
That single tear was incredibly poignant. Professional wrestling is a very loud medium, but that was a moment of profound quiet.
Yeah, it felt very real.
It signaled to the audience, without a single word being spoken on a microphone, that this might be a legitimate retirement for Brock Lesnar.
The online reaction was this fascinating mix of mourning and just sheer awe. You had fans who grew up watching John Cena versus Brock Lesnar suddenly realizing that their childhood era is definitively ending.
It's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
But simultaneously, they're acknowledging that Oba Femi looks terrifyingly legitimate.
But this incredible moment, it creates an immediate booking dilemma for the writers.
Right, because how do you book a superstar who just easily destroyed the final boss?
Don't.
Where does Oba Femi go from here? He just pieced at WrestleMania.
It's a massive structural challenge. Think about it. If you put Oba Femi in a regular match next week on Raw against a standard mid-card wrestler, someone who isn't a main eventer, and that match goes 10 minutes with a lot of back-and-forth action, it completely invalidates what just happened to Brock Lesnar.
Oh, totally. The audience will say, wait, Brock Lesnar couldn't last 5 minutes against this guy, but this random mid-card guy can last 10.
You risk completely unraveling the monster you just built.
So what do?
Well, the psychological brilliance of this booking is that it sacrifices a legend to instantly establish a new, unshakable tentpole for the franchise. They bypassed years of traditional mid-card buildup.
Let's define mid-card really quickly for anyone confused.
The mid-card is essentially the middle of the roster. Wrestlers who are featured regularly, they might fight for secondary championships like the Intercontinental title, but they aren't the main draw of the show.
There aren't other posters.
Usually, a wrestler spends years in the mid-card proving themselves before moving to the main event.
But Oba Femi doesn't need to win a mid-card title to prove he's ready for the main event. He just retired Brock Lesnar. He skipped the line completely.
And the Monday Night Raw follow-up proved this strategy perfectly.
It really did. Oba didn't even wrestle on Raw. He just strutted down to the ring wearing the sharp suit, picked up a microphone, stared dead into the hard camera, and simply stated, "The ruler has arrived."
Such a powerful moment.
And then he just dropped the mic and walked to the back.
And the crowd erupted. He didn't need to say anything else. He is instantly a main event fixture based entirely on the equity Brock Lesnar transferred to him on Sunday.
It's brilliant. But Oba wasn't the only younger talent making massive, violent waves at the expense of established stars this weekend. We need to look at the absolute chaos erupting in the rest of the roster.
The underlying theme of this entire weekend is truly about the next generation violently taking their space. And nowhere was that more evident than in the intense personal feud between Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this segment on Monday Night Raw was so visceral, we need to set the stage. Seth Rollins, who lost to Gunther on Saturday, comes out to the ring.
He's banged up. He's angry.
He is visibly frustrated. He ends up attacking a faction known as The Vision, which consists of Logan Paul and Austin Theory with a steel chair.
And Braun Breaker, who is a younger powerhouse that had previously aligned himself with Logan Paul in Theory, is in the ring during this chaos.
Right. So Seth Rollins, holding the chair, turns his attention to Braun. Seth goes for his finishing move, the curb stomp, but Braun Breaker is just too fast. He dodges it completely.
And the retaliation from Braun was absolutely brutal.
It was hard to watch.
He hit Seth with a massive spear, a football-style tackle that nearly cut Seth in half, but he doesn't stop there.
No, the psychology here was so aggressive. Braun literally rips off Seth's shirt. He stands over him and screams that he never needed Seth's help, and that the fans will remember Seth not as a visionary, but as a shell of what he used to be.
And then comes the physical punctuation mark. Braun runs the ropes at full speed and hits a rebound attack that legitimately busts Seth Rollins open.
There was real blood on Monday Night Raw, which is incredibly rare in this modern PG-ish era. The Reddit threads were losing their minds over how fast Braun was moving.
He's explosive.
It perfectly positions Braun as this ruthless successor. He isn't just trying to beat Seth Rollins in a wrestling match, He's trying to physically end his era.
It's a changing of the guard, executed through pure aggression and disrespect for the veteran. It sends a clear message to the audience. The old heroes are vulnerable.
But I want to contrast that heavy, violent drama with the pure technical wrestling we saw elsewhere on the card. Because while the main event guys are bleeding and crying, we had the Ethan Page versus Javon Evans match on Raw.
And this is where we have to talk about the concept of work rate.
Let's define that for the listeners.
Work rate is a term used by fans to describe the sheer physical quality, the speed, and technical execution of the wrestling holds and maneuvers in a match.
So it's about the athleticism.
Exactly. It prioritizes the athletic performance over the theatrical soap opera storytelling. Some fans care deeply about the drama, while others tune in specifically for the high work rate athletic exhibitions.
And the Reddit threads were absolutely loving the work rate in this match. They were calling it a mini banger.
A very high compliment on the internet.
They praised the incredible fast-paced chemistry between these two. And it's worth noting, both Ethan Page and Javon Evans are recent NXT call-ups, meaning they were recently promoted from WWE's developmental brand, NXT, up to the main roster on Raw.
So they're fresh faces to a lot of the casual audience, and this match provided that high work rate showcase that a certain very vocal segment of the fan base just craves. They want to see crisp suplexes, intricate counter wrestling, and flawless aerial maneuvers.
But it wasn't just gymnastics, right? It actually served a narrative purpose moving forward. The match ends with interference from a massive veteran, Rusev.
Rusev attacks Evans, locking in his devastating submission hold, the Accolade.
And then Penta, the guy who just won the Intercontinental title in that incredible The Night 2 ladder match we talked about earlier, he runs down to the ring to make the save and chase Rusev off.
But the twist comes from Ethan Page.
Right.
Page turns on Penta, shoves him off the top rope, and actively allies with Rusev. Page actually stands there and applauds as Rusev puts the Accolade submission on the new champion, Penta.
It instantly sets up this compelling, multi-layered challenge for Penta's newly won Intercontinental title. You have the established monster in Rusev, the opportunistic newcomer in Ethan Page, and the honorable champion in Penta.
It intertwines the new call-ups with the established veterans seamlessly. It's incredibly efficient storytelling.
And speaking of incredibly efficient storytelling and established veterans facing new challenges, we absolutely have to talk about Sami Zayn.
Oh, man. The character work Sami Zayn is doing right now is arguably the most nuanced in the entire industry.
Let's give the background. Sami Zayn lost his United States Championship to a rising star named Trick Williams on night 2. And the Reddit analysis of Sami's psychological state during and after this match is just top-tier internet sleuthing.
The fans noted a fascinating, almost uncomfortable dynamic playing out on screen. To understand it, we have to quickly define babyface and heel.
Right. A babyface is the good guy, the hero the crowd is supposed to cheer for. A heel is the villain, the antagonist they're supposed to boo.
Exactly. I mean, look at it this way. The commentary team was strictly treating Sami Zayn as the babyface. They were talking about his heart, his resilience, framing him as the honorable champion fighting the good fight.
But his actions didn't match that.
Not at all. Sami's actual physical performance, his body language, was exuding this deeply insecure, almost incel-like heel energy against Trick Williams.
I love the analogy one user brought up on Reddit for this. It's like Sami Zayn is that beloved, critically acclaimed indie rock band. You know the type.
Oh, absolutely. The ones with the diehard cult following.
Right. They've been grinding in the underground for a decade, playing in dive bars, earning every single fan through blood, sweat, and tears. They feel they possess true artistic integrity.
And Trick Williams.
Trick Williams is the mainstream pop star who just effortlessly gets radio play. He's naturally charismatic. He has a catchy entrance theme. He smiles. And the crowd just naturally gravitates toward him without him seeming to try very hard at all.
It drives the indie band crazy.
Yes. Sami Zayn resents Trick because Trick makes it look easy, while Sami feels he has to bleed for every single inch of respect.
That analogy hits the nail right on the head. Sami is projecting a superiority complex to mask a massive inferiority complex.
I'm a better wrestler than you. Why do they love you more?
Exactly. Sami's psychological unraveling because he simply cannot handle. Trick's natural swagger is far more compelling than a standard good guy versus bad guy feud. It's rooted in deep-seated, relatable human insecurity.
It really is. So
Yeah.
while the men's midcard is absolutely thriving with these deeply psychological narrative directions and technical showcases, we have to pivot.
Yeah, we have to talk about the other half of the roster.
We have to look at the women's division, which experienced a much more turbulent and, frankly, frustrating weekend, according to the sources.
This requires us to look critically at the structural booking issues and missed opportunities that plagued the women's division, particularly on that disastrous night 1.
We mentioned it earlier, but it really bears repeating and expanding upon. None of the women's matches on Saturday crossed the 10-minute mark. We had the fatal 4-way tag team match won by Brie Bella and Paige, and we had Liv Morgan's title defense against Stephanie Vacher.
And we have to ask why these matches lacked clear engagement from the audience. It goes back to our earlier point about pacing and the TKO corporate mandates.
Right, the DoorDash ads.
When a match is suffocated by impending ad breaks, it reduces the athletes to performing a rushed sequence of moves rather than telling a story.
The fans on Reddit were brutally honest about this. They felt the fatal 4-way was essentially a manufactured pop.
Just a nostalgia trip.
It was a hurried sequence designed strictly so Paige, a very popular veteran making a return, could simply enter the ring, hit her finisher, and win.
There was no struggle. There was no moment where you thought the villains might actually win.
Exactly. The casual viewer had zero reason to care about the outcome because the match didn't give them any time to invest. It felt like checking a box rather than presenting a legitimate competition.
And that profound frustration from Saturday boiled over into night 2 with the highly anticipated match between Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill.
Oh, the online community had massive expectations for this one. For context, Rhea Ripley is arguably the most popular female wrestler on the planet right now. She is a powerhouse.
And Jade Cargill.
Jade Cargill is a newer acquisition, built like an absolute superhero who has been positioned as an unstoppable force. The fans desperately wanted a clean, heavy-hitting slobber knocker between these two titans.
They wanted to see who was genuinely the strongest. They wanted a definitive, satisfying answer.
But they didn't get one. Instead, the match was completely bogged down by unnecessary interference from multiple factions. You had wrestlers like Io Sky, B-Fab, and Michin all getting involved.
It muddied the waters entirely. Fans on the discussion boards argued vehemently that a clean, decisive win for Jade Cargill Could have been a massive star-making moment.
It would have elevated her instantly.
Jade is still building her legacy in WWE. Beating Rhea Ripley cleanly in the middle of the ring at WrestleMania would have instantly minted her as the new face of the division.
Instead, because of all the interference, Rhea Ripley retained the championship. And the consensus among the reviewers is that retaining didn't actually elevate Rhea any further because she is already at the absolute peak of her popularity.
She has nowhere higher to go.
Right. So it felt like a massive missed opportunity to truly anoint a new top-tier star in Jade.
The fans felt robbed of a definitive conclusion. However, as critical as the fan base was of the weekend's treatment of the women's division, there were significant silver linings when we look at the Monday Night Raw follow-up.
One name, just one name. Sol Ruca.
Yes. Sol Ruca confronting Liv Morgan on Raw and putting on a highly praised match was a massive bright spot that completely shifted the tone of the online discourse.
Let's paint the picture. Liv Morgan, who retained her title in that Rush Night 1 match, comes out to the ring on Raw. She is cutting this incredibly arrogant promo about being the greatest champion of all time, thanking her faction, the Judgment Day, for their support.
She's just soaking in the booze from the crowd.
And suddenly, Sol Ruca, another one of these fresh NXT call-ups, interrupts her. But Sol doesn't come out aggressive. She plays this overly sweet, almost painfully naive, inspired fan. She talks about how much she looks up to Liv.
But then the tone shifts entirely.
Right. Sol drops the sweet act and coldly tells Liv that she better get out of her ring right now if she wants to make it to next year's Mania in one piece.
Yeah.
And then they had a match that the internet absolutely loved.
The Reddit consensus is already crowning Sol Ruca. They are calling her a megastar in the making, praising her unique offense and her natural charisma.
And this brings up a really interesting logistical and structural point that the hardcore fans noticed about the company's rosters moving forward.
We are seeing a massive influx of talent. These NXT call-ups, Oba Femi retiring, Brock Lesnar, Ethan Page and Javon Evans tearing it up in the mid-card, Sol Ruca stepping directly up to the women's champion. They are all injecting this massive, necessary life into the Monday Night Raw roster.
But there is a direct consequence to that strategy. By heavily loading Raw with all of this exciting, dynamic new talent, fans are observing that the Friday Night SmackDown roster's depth looks severely compromised by comparison.
I saw a thread where fans were genuinely asking, what the hell is going to happen on SmackDown? Who is left to fight?
It creates a stark logistical imbalance between the two shows. The company will have to address this, likely through a draft or some sort of storyline trades in the near future. Otherwise, SmackDown risks becoming the B show very quickly.
Okay, let's take a breath and draw all these disparate threads together. We've talked about the incredibly frustrating, commercialized pacing of Night 1.
The DoorDash mania.
We've talked about the emotional veteran retirements and the heartbreak of CM Punk. We've highlighted the massive impact of the NXT call-ups, the complex family drama of the bloodline, and the chaos in the mid-card. We need to summarize the current state of the wrestling landscape coming out of this wild, unpredictable weekend.
To distill the key takeaways from the massive stack of sources we've reviewed, WrestleMania 42 and the Raw After Mania represented a profound, almost violent changing of the guard.
Absolutely.
Yes, Night 1 was heavily and rightfully criticized for its blatant commercialization, the TKO debt leveraging, and the severely compromised pacing that deeply hurt the women's division.
But despite that corporate interference, Night 2 delivered incredible, breathing, in-ring storytelling that reminded everyone exactly why they endure the bad to get to the good.
We saw the tearful, shocking end of Brock Lesnar's historic run. We saw the controversial resurrection of the Roman Reigns era and the introduction of a desperate, terrifying new element to the bloodline in Jacob Fatu.
We witnessed the quiet vulnerability of CM Punk as he realizes his time carrying the company might be over.
And perhaps most importantly for the long-term health of the company, we saw the explosive, undeniable rise of a new generation. Oba Femi, Braun Breaker, Sol Ruca, Ethan Page.
They didn't just debut, you know, they forcefully took their spots. The landscape has been irrevocably altered.
And connecting this back to you, the listener, if you were watching this weekend and found yourself completely confused by the rapid shifts in tone, if you were wondering why one match felt like a gripping emotional masterpiece and the next felt like a rushed 30-second commercial for a mobile game,
Understanding the tension between corporate monetization and traditional wrestling psychology explains exactly why this weekend felt the way it did.
it's the friction between art and commerce playing out live with varying degrees of success on a global stage.
And that leads us to a final underlying mechanism to consider, a theory that some of the more analytical fans have started to whisper about online.
Oh, I like a good theory. Let's hear it.
We've spent a lot of time today talking about TKO's heavy ad mandates, the DoorDash commercials, and the frustration it caused the viewers. But I want to look at the other side of the ledger. Look at the sheer volume of new talent that was instantly elevated this weekend.
It was unprecedented. Oba Femi destroying Lesnar in under 5 minutes. Sol Ruca stepping right up to the champion, Liv Morgan. Ethan Page making an immediate impact in the Intercontinental title picture. Jacob Fatu stepping right up to Roman Reigns and demanding the spotlight.
Here is where it gets incredibly provocative from a business standpoint. Is it possible that the controversial, ad-heavy corporate mandate of TKO isn't just about selling 30-second commercials to service their debt?
What do you mean? What's the alternative?
What if they're deliberately using the deep nostalgia and the massive drawing power of incredibly expensive, aging veterans like Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns as rapid launch pads?
Oh, wow. You're saying it's a deliberate economic transition.
It's a fascinating economic theory. The ultimate goal of the TKO board might be to quickly and efficiently replace those high-priced, part-time legacy stars with a younger, significantly cheaper, and highly talented generation of wrestlers who can work a full-time schedule.
And how do you do that without losing the audience?
Yeah.
You have the expensive veterans essentially transfer their cultural equity directly to the rookies on the biggest stage possible.
Exactly. By having a legend like Brock Lesnar put over a newcomer like Oba Femi so decisively, they're fundamentally altering the economic model of the main event scene forever.
That makes total sense.
They're building a new roster that costs a fraction of the price but draws just as much viewership, using the veterans' remaining cultural capital to pay for the transition.
That changes how you view every single match from this weekend. Going back to our analogy from the very beginning. When you look at the structure of WrestleMania 42, the jarring shifts in pacing, the weird finishes, the sudden squashes, the fracture isn't a mistake.
Not at all.
It's an intentional break, designed by a massive corporate machine to reset the bone so it grows back leaner, cheaper, and stronger for the next generation.
The murky waters, the chaotic booking, the feeling of whiplash, they aren't bugs in the system, they're the feature of a company in profound transition.
Keep a close eye on those new stars, everyone. Because their sudden rise isn't just a fun new storyline for us to watch. It is the blueprint of the new business model. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time as we continue to decode the stories behind the spectacle.